Okay. Okay. זהו. אז ערב טוב. How are you?
Are you asking me? I'm okay.
I'm asking you.
I thought you were asking the audience.
No.
Thanks. Baruch Hashem, no.
I'm actually rather nervous, I have to say. Although I've been doing this a lot, I'm actually rather nervous.
The truth is that if it would have been in Hebrew, I would be less nervous, but I'll do my best.
I'm sure you'll be fine.
What is the name of the page in Facebook?
It's called מירית הופמן, עורכת דין לגיל השלישי. But at the end of this session, I'll send you the link, so don't worry.
Thank you.
Of course. Okay, so I see that there are some people that have already joined us. So I suggest we'll just start, if that's okay. Okay, so good evening, everyone. My name is Mirit Hoffman. I'm an attorney. My main focus is estate planning and elder law, which is wills, enduring power of attorneys, trusts, and I advise on estate planning and tax issues relating to people who have U.S. and Israeli citizenships. And from my exposure with this age group, I realized that there are a lot of important issues that should be addressed that concern elders. So I decided to host talk sessions with other professionals to spread the information. And so we're going to start. And research basically shows that there's an increase in life expectancy and that in present time, it bypasses the age of 80. But with old age generally comes a decline in health. And specifically, mental illnesses are more common as we grow older, like Parkinson's, dementia. And they greatly harm not only our physical, but also our cognitive abilities. And they develop slowly over time. So although we might live longer, doesn't necessarily mean that our quality of life stays the same. And tonight we're going to discuss halachic and ethical questions that arise regarding medical decisions towards the end of life and also dementia. And here with me is Rabbi Yuval Cherlow, who leads Tzohar's Center for Jewish Ethics and is one of the organization's founders. Thank you very, very much for joining us tonight. And the floor is yours, as we say.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for having me. I'll try to do my best, even though English is not my typical language. It would have been better in Hebrew, but I'll do my best. My goal is to try to introduce our project in Tzohar, the idea of preparing ourselves to the age of 120, but I'm not going to do any advice. I don't want to advertise Tzohar. Tzohar is not the issue. The issue is why did we make the decision, and what were the reasons for the conclusion that we should open this special project, and what are the halachic debates and questions, and in the end, a few typical questions that we deal with doing this project. And we see it as a very important one to, first of all, change the image of halacha towards the end of life. What do we mean by changing the idea of halacha? I mean, I'm not going to excuse me. I'll try. First of all, I'll put it up. Okay. I'm not going to explain all the halacha ideas, but the main issue, the main idea is to explain what is the meaning of changing the image. And a few words about Tzohar. The Tzohar Rabbinical Organization was founded by a group of religious Zionist rabbis. You can read it and you can get all the information about it. And this is our project, and it's we have a hotline. We speak about it in the end. So what is the meaning of changing the image or the perspective of halacha? The best way to explain it is to show what we did in the past. As you know, a few years ago, the image or the idea, if you would have asked any regular people does halacha support organ donations or not? I think that the most of the people would have said no, because it's prohibited. And I think this is the best example. Approximately 12 years ago, there was a very known soccer player, we say football, and that was killed in a car accident. His family agreed to donate all his organs, but was convinced by someone or two guys that pretend themselves to be rabbis to say it's prohibited according to halacha, and therefore people died because these organs weren't donated. And the decision of the Israeli chief rabbinate from 1987 is that in principle, I'm not talking about the details, but in principle, organ donation is a great idea, and you're permitted to do that, but actually didn't change the image. So therefore, only in 2016, as you can see, or 2018, actually, February 2018, a group of rabbis, modern Orthodox rabbis, endorsed organ donation as a mitzvah and actually recruited the chief rabbinate, one of the chief rabbis that said this is the right thing to do. And therefore, today, we can say that more than 2/3 of the Israeli population are agreeing in real time. I'm not talking about signing the card, but when it comes to the decision to donate the organs or not, so more than 2/3 of the families are doing that. I can't say it's, we are responsible and we should get all be prized because of that. There were a lot of bodies and a lot of groups that tried to change this image, but thank God we succeeded. And the same thing is the need to a comprehensive response to end-of-life issues. Why? First of all, the situation. And life are longer. And because life are longer, we see more and more people that there is a gap between their knowledge, soul, or whatever, and the body. In some cases, the body is completely healthy, but the mental situation is more and more is declining and dementia and whatever. In other cases, the opposite is someone is his body and he suffers and he doesn't want to be ventilated and he wants to die, but his brain is completely okay. And these are new situations because the medical advancements has really improved and went very far. Now, more than that, there are ability to keep people alive for a long time. I think that Israeli population was exposed to that when Prime Minister Sharon was kept alive for months without any real reason. And I think that everybody could see through this situation that we must ask ourselves, what is the right thing to do? So this is the first thing. The second thing is that the idea of the patient autonomy is decision-making, is part of it. And if you would have come to a hospital 20, 30 years ago, it wasn't an issue. And if the doctors came to a conclusion that this is the right thing to do, they did it, even if the patient was against it, or even if the family was against it, or whatever. But today, the idea that the patient has an autonomy and you have to get its informed consent, not only his consent, but also informed consent is part of the need to discuss and to change the rules. And as I said, the image of halacha regarding the idea of the patient autonomy. Now, the third reason that there is a need is because individuals and families face a desperate need to answer when it comes to end of life because of the patient autonomy, and not only because of ethics reasons. It's also because of the threat of the hospital to be sued, doing an inappropriate thing or and do wrong things towards the patient. In many cases, the doctors and the nurses and all the staff actually is throwing the ball towards the family. Now, there are good things in this idea, but families really face a desperate need to answer questions that they're not prepared to answer because they don't have the, they don't have the knowledge and they don't understand everything from the medical point of view, from the ethical point of view, from halachic point of view. And also it's very sensitive because they're very close. And many times they do wrong things because they think that they should do that. So therefore there is a need to have someone that can help and advise and make all the information more accessible. And there are some who believe that palliative care is halachically prohibited, as I said before. So in many cases, and as you know, the society in Israel is religious and I want to say that it's not only the percentage of religious people. I said that the most of the conservative, I mean regarding not the movement and the idea of being connected to the tradition, when it comes to death, more and more people want to do things according to halacha. I'll say it in a little bit cynical way. When they're preparing themselves to meet with God, they want to come, that they did the right thing. So therefore, more and more people are asking, what is the halacha perspective and what are the halachic rules towards those issues? And you can see the other things that we need really we need to change things in order to face the new situation. Now, I'm not going to talk a very long speech now about halacha. I would be very happy to do that, but this is not right. This is not the idea of this short meeting. But I can say that the halacha recognizes the respect and the understanding that in certain cases, enough is enough, and can even prohibit extending life through artificial means of intervention. And that's very, very important to know. So everybody knows that the halacha, from one hand, sees life as a holy thing, that we are not permitted to suicide, we're not permitted to give up early. But there are cases, and it's very, very careful. And then we have to understand the analysis and must be deliberated upon a case-by-case basis. But there are situations where the halacha permitted, and as I said, not only permitted, but also sometimes even it's the right thing to do, and it's forbidden to extend life when someone suffers, and therefore this is the main idea of our project: to teach it, to consultate with doctors, with halacha people, halacha authorities, and then sit with the families together and find the right thing to do. What actually the challenges? First of all, close-mindedness. People don't like. These are the problems that people don't deal with those issues, and one of the reasons is because it's you're locked in the idea and the way you look at things. People don't like to speak about this. They believe that no matter, we must do everything in order to expand the life of our relatives, and people naturally avoid difficult decisions. And these are the main obstacles that we have when we want to deal with families about those situations. Now, these are our principles. And as I said, I'm not talking about Tzohar. I want to say that this is the halachic principles that I think everybody should know. First of all, that palliative care recognizes on halacha an ethical practice, and those must be addressed. That's very important to know that halacha does recognize in palliative care, and there's a lack of understanding of ethical practice and halacha in how people approach end-of-life issues. So therefore, we must help people in order to accomplish their knowledge and be able to make those decisions. It's very important that rabbis will not be considered as in conflict with the staff of the hospital. The opposite is the truth. You know, there are groups that when they want to make health decisions, they tell the doctors or they tell the staff, they tell the hospital, what you say is not important. We all go to our rabbis, and the rabbi will say if to operate or to ventilate or not. This is not the real approach, the approach that we believe in. We believe that you have to work with close coordination. You have to have trust in the staff of the hospital. They are the professionals. They are the doctors. And we come from the ethical and from the halachic point of view, but working together is the most important thing. And also families must work together to address, and that is, you must take in account what will happen the day after, because if there is a conflict inside the family, it will continue and people, families can be broken completely because of doing wrong decisions. And actually, rabbis, and our goal is to provide the best and most, the best service that we can, offer it completely free. That's, obvious. What is actually the things that again, I'm not talking about Tzohar, I'm using Tzohar in order to explain what is important. First of all, a hotline, information, and teaching not only, or not advising not only the families, but also medical staff, home nurses, rabbis, community members, and try more and more to convince and to pursue people to make advanced medical instructions. I think that it's very important. And again, there is an image that religion is against advanced medical instruction because al tiftach peh lesatan, don't open your mouth or don't speak things that the devil can hear them and use them. It's unbelievable how many people are suffering and how many families are in a big desperate and conflict because they don't know what actually the patient wants if he cannot express himself. So therefore, we do advise and pursue and convincing people to give medical instructions. And these are common questions that rabbis are being asked. First of all, should CPR be continued at any cost? The answer, as you can understand, is no. There's nothing in halacha, nothing in ethics that can be, that doesn't have limits, that doesn't have borders. And it's not only the question of cost, meaning money, it's cost of pain, of suffering. And the answer is you should find the line that until this line, you must do everything in order to try to save life. And across this line is the fact that enough is enough, and the right thing to do is to let people to die with their family around it without suffering. And you don't have, and not in all the cases you have to do CPR. These are the issues that we are trying to explain. Until when, yes, and from when, no. May feeding someone who is about to die be discontinued? The answer is definitely yes, because in many cases, it's not only suffering. In many cases, it's a question of pollution. And in many cases, there's really no need to do that. So therefore, it's not our decision as the rabbis. This is the decision of doctors. As I said before, we are not getting involved in medical decisions. But if we are being asked and consulting about the issue, about it, the doctor says that there's no really need to feed, and actually it's causing a lot of damage and maybe pollution and maybe a lot of suffering. Does the halacha say in what cases that can you stop doing that? The answer will be yes. As I said, depends where you draw the line. Are you allowed to lie to someone who has dementia regarding his medical situation? Again, we wrote about it a lot of papers, and the answer is yes, because we know that from the general approach to saying the truth or to lie in halacha. As you know, the halacha admires the truth. The halacha says that you have to be very far from lying, but in the same time, the halacha says, for instance, when you come to a wedding, and let's say that the kala, she's not the prettiest one in the world, you do say and you do phrase her, because there are things that are meeting the idea between saying the truth and not saying the truth. And if saying the truth doesn't have actually any meaning to this patient because he's, in dementia situation, so therefore, if this is the way to relax him, you are permitted to do that. Should treatment, when there is no hope for a positive outcome, be continued? I answered it before. Again, I want to be very careful. I didn't say, chas v'shalom, that everything is permitted. And I didn't say that in any case that someone wants to die, the answer will be, let's help him to do that in an active way. Again, chas v'shalom. What I'm saying that there is a place to draw the line, and the halacha draws the line in a very interesting way that says, until now, yes, but if there's no horizon to continue the treatment, and there's a lot of suffering, and actually you have to do active things in order to treat the patient, not to stop treating them. This is the situation where the halacha in many cases will say enough is enough. Is it permissible to use pain even if some carry risks are shortening the lives? Let's say it in a simple way. Again, the answer is yes. And actually many rabbis and even very ultra-Orthodox rabbis wrote about it and said that you are permitted to use medicine against pain, even if there's a risk. If it's, for sure will shorten the life, the answer is no, because this is an active, and you're doing something active in order to shorten life, and this is not permitted. But if it is a risk, the answer is yes, and in every hospital, even when it's being conducted by ultra-Orthodox rabbis, they will use those medicine. What should be done in the case of patient who wants, to stop treatment? First of all, the answer will be to speak with him, to listen to him, to discuss with him, to try to convince him, to empower him, and not immediately to lift your hands. But from the other hand, as we studied in this shortened presentation, the answer will be there is a way to come to a common decision with the patient. And the last example, are you allowed to daven for someone deaf to cases is suffering? In the Gemara, there are stories that people davened and prayed that someone will die. Today, the approach is a little bit different. We don't pray that someone will die, but we pray that Hashem, that God will do the best for him. And because it's very sensitive and it's very difficult to pray for someone's death, but in the same time, to pray for his, being healthy is something that is the wrong thing to do, not only because he's suffering, because the situation, you don't take miracles as a consideration. You pray according to the reality, and it's not the right thing to do. There's in Hebrew, we say tfilat shav. You don't pray tfilat shav. In the end, as you see, this is actually what the prophet said. And thank God, really, we have more and more elderly people in Jerusalem and in the entire Israel, and more children are playing alongside. It's really kind of a redemption, and it's a big blessing, but in the same time, as I said before, the idea we have to be very careful not to do the wrong things and not to expend the lifetime of suffering. Now, I want again to emphasize, it's very, very important to know that from one hand, we do our approach towards life is that life are holy, and we are trying to do everything that we can in order to keep them and to, as long as we are in this world, do everything. The right thing to do is to continue and to try to keep our lives and to see them as a treasure, something that is very, very important. But changing the image is so important to explain and to learn and to understand that there is a point, there is a line. You draw somewhere the line, and the Allah draws the line where enough is enough, and we have also to know how to, leave this world silent with our families, not suffering and not doing things in order to feel that we did everything that we can. I'll explain this last point, and then I'll try to say good things. Families must be very careful, because in many cases they feel that they want to do towards the patient everything that is possible in order to extend their life, but actually they are thinking about themselves. They want to know that their conscience is pure and they did everything that they could. When you think about it, in many cases, it's not something that is good for the patient. It's good for the family. And we always have to think about the human and the mercy and the understanding. How can we help the patient? And when we understand that, then we are doing in many cases the right thing, trying to, from one hand, as I said, to keep him alive, and from the other hand, to understand that there is a point where you cross the line, you start a palliative care and doing the right thing in order to die silent and without with life quality, not only with minutes, but actually the quality of life is very important. Thank you very much.
I have a question for you, Rav Cherlow. There are these documents from the Ministry of Health regarding end-of-life decisions that people fill out and file, and then it's in the database of the Ministry of Health, and in the event that the person, God forbid, is considered end-of-life. And I just want for everybody involved to understand, according to the law, end-of-life means that you only have 6 months to live, regardless of what kinds of medical care you receive. In the event that somebody reaches end of life and he doesn't have cognitive control anymore, then the doctors are supposed to look at those medical instructions that the person had left in the database. What do you, do you give advice on the Rabbanei Tzohar? Do they give advice on how to fill out those documents? And B, do you have any thoughts about these documents in general?
Definitely, yes. First of all, we support them. And we support them, as I said before, because the patient autonomy and his decisions is also a great factor. I didn't say it's the only one. And there is we do believe in other factors like the halacha, like the holiness of life. And as I said before, but his wishes are very, very important, and we do support, first of all, signing them. The second thing, we give a lot of advice because people are asking, are we permitted to say that if we'll need to be ventilated, we don't want in a situation? So this is the most common question, or feeding, as we spoke before, and we give very, very close and advice how to fill those documents. I want to say one thing about them, that in the same time that giving medical advice, as you know, instruction, not advice, as you know, that the other way to do things is to appoint someone and make him a
power of attorney.
Yeah, an attorney, and he'll make the decisions. And we do support to do both, because you know, many things that you think in the age, for instance, when I'm in my 60s, okay? And many of my friends are thinking that when they'll need diapers, chas v'shalom, they want to die. They don't want any. But when you reach this point, in many cases, actually you want to stay with your grandchildren or great-grandchildren, and even if it's not convenient, and even if you're suffering, so therefore, in many cases, sometimes you give instructions that, even though you check them every 5 years, you know the law better than me, but you have to. It's not not everything that you thought 20 years ago or even 5 years ago are actually the real thinking of this situation, and therefore it's very good to appoint a very close person, your son, your wife, someone that knows you, in order to be the apotropos have the legal position to make decisions.
Okay, so for the people who are here and afterwards who listen to this during the week, I'm going to put in the comments the information for Tzohar 120, so you can contact them, and also the link that discusses the documents that we just talked about regarding end of life. Thank you very much, Rav Cherlow, for being here and for this late hour. It was very important what you said, and very much needed to be heard. So thank you very much again. Thank you, everybody, for participating in our conversation. If we see and find that there is a need to have an actual question and answer session, then we will do so, but you need to let me know about that. Rav Cherlow has agreed very nicely, very graciously to participate in one of those as well. In the meantime, I wish everybody a good night, a Laila Tov, and looking forward to seeing you in our next live.
Good night.
Good night.